Islamic economics has received an increasing demand, especially when the awareness of the Islamic fundamentals among the Muslims are increasing. But is Islamic economics capable to maintain the justice according to the teaching of Islam? First and foremost, what is Islamic economics? Well, it is difficult to understand and study Islamic economics and the structure of the Islamic financial mechanism in isolation. Unlike in Western types economics, where it is done with some degree of ease, Islamic economics differs fundamentally from man-made laws and system in defining economic problem.
لله ملك السماوات والأرض وما فيهن وهو على كل شيء قدير.
To Allah alone belongs the kingdom of the heavens and the earth and everything within, and He is the most capable of everything. Quran Surah Al-Ma'idah verse 120. From the verse of the Quran, what can be concluded that this is the economic principle that Islam holds. This is to believe that all wealth in the world and the raw materials are the absolute property of Allah. Man was appointed as Khalifa to manage all the belongings of Allah for the pleasure of the world. Each individual must exercise the trust fairly and equitably and not oppress other individuals. Surah Al-Ma'idah verse 120 has pointed out the key principles for Islamic economics. There are many contributory verses that guide and lay down the economic and financial principles to human beings as individuals or collectively as a society or as a nation. These principles form the Islamic law, which is known as Sharia, which is the structure of Islamic law based on divine guidance, which is the Quran and Sunnah. In the 15th century, Ibn Khaldun provided a framework which is a summary of the interdisciplinary dynamic model of Islamic socio-economic model. The strength of the sovereign al-Mulk does not become consumed except by implementation of the Sharia. The Sharia cannot be implemented except by a sovereign al-Mulk. The sovereign cannot gain strength except through the people al-Rijal. The people cannot be sustained except by wealth al-Mal. Wealth cannot be acquired except through development al-Imaran. Development cannot be attained except through justice al-Adil. Justice is the criterion al-Mizan by which God will evaluate mankind, and the sovereign is charged with the responsibility of actualizing justice. Before we move forward, it is good for us to know the definition and the practice of conventional economics. According to Joshua D. Gottlieb, an economist, he defines the conventional economic system as a systematic inquiry into the nature of historical economic system, their relationship with their peripheral areas, the ways in which they and their components have evolved over time, including modes of production, use of resources, coordination, functions of the state in the economy, and the institutions of money and property. The main economic system that generally known today are capitalism economics and socialism economics, which also called as conventional economics. Conventional economics is an economic system that gives full freedom to everyone to carry out economic activities. It does not have an absolute standard and can change according to a condition in a society. On the other hand, Islamic economic system aims to build society life and able to accommodate human needs in the world and the hereafter, which is the falah, which is the principles are guided from the Quran and Sunnah as mentioned previously. The rules that can be found in those sources will never change, especially in regards with the fundamental of Islam. So, how Islamic economics differ from conventional economics? According to the conventional economic system, the real economic problem is the lack of existing resources. Lack of the resources is often called scarcity. This is because every human being has diverse and unlimited needs, while the resources, which is goods and services, used to fulfill human needs are limited. In contrast, Islamic economics mention the limited is in human needs, while its resources are not limited or already measured in accordance with what has been given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Scarcity in Islamic economics is actually only a relative scarcity. It is a scarcity of resources occurring in short stalls or in certain areas only. Therefore, it can be concluded that conventional economics has unlimited human wants and desire for opulence, while Islamic economics preaches the need for humans to suppressing their wants, avoiding luxury life, and sharing a moral activity that brings its own reward and happiness. Secondly, the methodology used. In conventional economics, a positive approach is much stressed because it studies the phenomenon of the existing economy and postpones the measurement value in any economic decisions. Meanwhile, Islamic economics uses two kinds of methodology, which are normative and positive methodologies. Normative methodology refers to what should be done in economic activities according to Islamic rules. Both economic systems use a positive methodology, but Islamic economics also uses the positive method that aims to find a way to change economic practice in the Islamic way. Further, there is one difference that most distinguishes conventional Islamic economics. It is the imposition of interest in a bank. In conventional bank, interest charged in almost all banking transactions, while in Islamic economic interest is prohibited. Interest in Islamic economics is called al-riba. Al-riba technically refers to the premium that must be paid by the borrower to the lender along with the principal amount as a condition of the loan or for an extension in the duration of loan. The imposition of interest at the conventional bank is reasonable because their orientation is maximum profit. In contrast to Islamic Sharia bank, the law of imposition interest is haram. So how does Islamic economics lead to economic justice? First is through the concept of Pareto optimum. Without justice, it would be difficult to realize even development. Muslim scholars have emphasized this throughout history. Development economics has also started emphasizing this importance, more so in the last few decades. According to Abu Yusuf, he argued that rendering justice to those wronged and eradicating injustice raises tax revenue, accelerates development of the country, and brings blessing in addition to reward in the hereafter. Al-Mawardi argued that comprehensive justice inculcates mutual love and affection, obedience to the law, development of the country, expansion of wealth, growth of progeny, and security of the sovereign. In addition, Ibn Taymiyyah emphasized that justice towards everything and everyone is an imperative for everyone. And injustice is prohibited to everything and everyone. Injustice is absolutely not permissible, irrespective of whether it is to Muslim or non-Muslim or even to an unjust person. Justice and well-being of all may be difficult to realize without a sacrifice on the part of the well-to-do. The concept of Pareto optimum does not therefore fit into the paradigm of Islamic economics. This is because Pareto optimum does not recognize any solution as optimum if it requires a sacrifice on the part of few rich for raising the well-being of the many poor. Hence, this concept did not arise in Islamic economics. In fact, Islam makes it a religious obligation for Muslims to make a sacrifice for the poor and the needy by paying zakat at the rate of 2.5% of their net worth. In addition, the Muslims are urged to spend their money towards the building of Ummah. For instance, give charity, building houses for the homeless, provide education to those unfortunate, and so forth. This is in addition to the taxes that they pay to the government. Next, the role played by the government. The Quran can only provide norms, it cannot by itself enforce them. The state has to ensure this. This is why the Prophet ﷺ said, God restrained through the sovereign more than what he restrained through the Quran. This emphasis on the role of the state has been reflected in the writings of all leading Muslim scholars throughout history. Al-Mawardi emphasized that an effective government is indispensable for preventing injustice and wrongdoings. Says law could not, therefore, become a meaningful proposition in Islamic economics. Several classical Muslim scholars, including al-Dimashqi and Ibn Khaldun, clearly expressed their disapproval of the state becoming directly involved in the economy. According to Ibn Khaldun, the state should not acquire the characteristic of a monolithic or despotic state, resorting to a high degree of regimentation. It should not feel that because it has authority it can do anything it likes. It should be welfare-oriented, moderate in its spending, respect the property rights of the people, and avoid onerous taxation. This implies that what these scholars visualize as the role of government is what has now been generally referred to as good governance. So what is the current development of Islamic economics? From the previous explanation, we can summarize that Islamic economics brought up five categories, three prohibitions and two obligations, namely prohibition of borrowing and lending transactions containing payment of interest, which is riba, prohibition of transactions involving excessive uncertainty, risk, asymmetric information, moral hazard, and gharar, prohibition of consumption and production of liquor, pork, and other demerit goods, and trust returns from common property to serve for the benefit of community, namely waqaf, charity contribution by the more endowed to serve for the benefit of the least endowed, which is zakat. From 1980s onward, serious and extensive institutional application of Islamic economics in finance and insurance showed up in many Islamic countries. In the last 2 decades, especially after the financial crisis 2007-2008, Islamic banking spread to non-Islamic countries as well, partly due to the less risky character of Islamic banking, and partly due to the autonomous demand for Sharia-compliant Islamic banking. This has been accompanied by a surge in world conferences on and involvement of International Economic Organization in Islamic economics, and an increasing number of universities and institutes that offer specialization training in Islamic banking and insurance, and that advance theoretical and empirical research in Islamic economics. Islamic entrepreneurship has made great leaps in the past decade, whether it is in the areas of Islamic banking, finance, insurance, or in the production and consumption of goods and services that associate and comply with Islamic norms and images. As a conclusion, the Western tradition of writing economics from Adam Smith to Malthus, Ricardo, Mill, and into modern times simply has no equivalent in the realm of Islam. Islamic economics are embedded in the broader framework of the jurisprudence of transactions and the scholasticism of the moral philosophers and theologians of Islam. Why do we need to adapt the Western system when we have our own system? Even though it is argued by some that the five directives are godly revelation and do not belong to the realm of theory analysis and policy making, but history has proven that with Islamic principles embedded in the country, it leads to the success of a nation, or else we will not see the glorious Islamic empire to rule a quarter of the world for centuries. Muslims have to refer back to our main sources, which are the Quran and the Hadith, then expand the fundamentals from both sources into wider and more complex situation. Muslims are not lack of idea to implement our own economic affairs, but we are scared of the withdrawal of foreign investors from the country to another, hence creating a financial catastrophe. But Muslims have to bear in mind that our goal is the hereafter and not the world. Moreover, there is no regrets in making sure that the shine of Islam remains to be brighter in the world for many years in coming.
إن الدين عند الله الإسلام وما اختلف الذين أوتوا الكتاب إلا من بعد ما جاءهم العلم بغيا بينهم ومن يكفر بآيات الله فإن الله سريع الحساب